Hi guys, I'm Philip J. Watt and this is the Redesigning Society series. Today our guest is Will Stanton. He's a young Australian researcher and writer and has recently written his first book called Education Revolution. As you can tell, today's topic is education, and we're going to be talking about what sort of areas in how we teach our kids need to be changed or transformed to help them to be more productive, healthy, functional, and just generally happy people. So thanks for joining us, Will.
Thanks, Phil. It's good to be here.
All right, so let's start with the education revolution. What led you to writing this book?
Yeah, so for me, I was doing a primary school education degree at university, and so I taught in a handful of schools here in Melbourne. I taught in a school in Kathmandu in Nepal, and then after seeing those systems, I kind of realized that there was a lot that was wrong fundamentally with the structure and the format of education and the way that we teach children. And I thought, if I wasn't going to fit in such a system that, that existed currently, I thought that I'd be better off spending my energy on trying to change the entire paradigm. And that's where I was aligning. And so I'm on this kind of lifelong mission now to try and change the education system globally. And that's where I decided that I'd create a whole new model of education that's based on, education for life rather than education for productive economic workers, which is kind of where we're at now. So, yeah, I created this whole new model I call the sixth dimension model, which, basically the six dimensions that I created this framework around are self-discovery, inquiry, sustainability, innovation, communication, and empathy. So I think that everything that an education system needs, a new education paradigm, can be, neatly structured around those six pillars. So yeah, basically that's my story of how I got to where I am, Phil.
Well, there's no doubt that it's needed. There are changes happening subtly in many different ways, as well as quite explicitly depending on where you live, in what region or what country. For example, a friend of mine was telling me her 3-year-old son at preschool, they've just introduced meditation into it, and I was really excited to hear that. I thought that's one of the most intelligent things I'd heard about a change to the education model in a long time, and this is in a preschool. And if you go in certain areas in Australia, you'll notice that the teachers do incorporate their own, passion and knowledge and skill around how they do teach their kids. But they're working against something that's pretty difficult, because it really does. The education system, it's almost an indoctrination process where you need to think about things in this particular way and don't break that mold. The spirit of education, in a sense, has been lost in many ways. And I know, for example, about myself and how I experienced the education system. I missed a huge chunk of real education, which was life skills, social skills, how to look after my emotions, how to have a functional psyche, what did it mean to be philosophical in life, what's the best way to socialize with people, how do I look after all those sorts of layers of health, what's a good way to behave in terms of reaching your potential and exploring life and being creative and all those things. Now, that was not given to me through the education model. I had to inevitably for myself to figure that out, but usually we'd go to our mentors or our guides or our parents or peers or whatnot to do that. But if we don't have that, then the education model allows so many people to slip through those gaps. So we need a good safety net, and your sixth dimension model is that safety net. So let's explore it. What's it all about?
Yeah, well, I think everything you just mentioned there, Phil, kind of is, are things that I definitely want to include in a new education system, and the things I've considered as part of the six dimensions that I've created. So the first dimension, self-discovery, is about unearthing children's passions and desires and what aligns with who they are as a human being. So it's what we got at the moment is we've got a system that doesn't recognize where children want to go naturally, where they are driven. You know, their sense of purpose is lost. Their sense of who they are is lost. So what we need to do is give children a chance, an opportunity to really work with their passion, work with where they're driven, where they're intuitively aligned. So things like creative play, I want to give children, provide an environment that lets them, you know, be creative in a really free, expressive way every day. So you allow them all these tools and resources to build and draw and play music, compose, create amazing works of art, and all these things. You just give them all of the tools and resources they need to be able to explore their natural creative, natural creative instincts. And as teachers, what the teacher's role would be is to work with those things and to nurture those things and to speak to the child's, you know, to speak to the core of each child and to really bring out the best and bring out their full potential. And you know, so I kind of see children kind of like the way that we see flowers, in that they need water and they need sunlight. They need an environment that provide those things, but we don't force anything on the children. We don't try and mold them or shape them or push them in any direction, which is where we've been going for generations and generations, is trying to, you know, sculpt children in a certain direction and make them the way that society wants to make them. But it's not about that. Everything they need is already there. We just got to give them the ingredients to bring that out and unearth that. So that's what self-discovery is about. And I want to bring in meditation. I want to bring in mindfulness. I want to really give children a chance to find themselves and not to run away from themselves. We've got this problem in society where everyone's running from themselves. No one wants to face or confront who they are. And if we solve this problem from an early age and we really, you know, allow children a chance to go in and to connect with who they are as a human being, and not to be fearful of that, not to be scared of that. And we do that through mindfulness and meditation. And if we bring these things into education, then what we're going to have is a whole new generation of human beings, of children who grow up to be who they're meant to be who they are naturally, to be who they want to be. So, you know, this is why self-discovery is so important, Phil.
All right, so the first dimension of your model is self-discovery. What an important aspect to incorporate into our education system, on not just, here, have a little bit of self-discovery time. So it's fundamentally embedded into the way that we help our kids learn. Really, really important. I mean, if people can't connect to themselves and understand their own strengths and weaknesses, then we've got a problem straight away. All right, so what's the second dimension of the model, Will?
Yeah, so the second dimension is inquiry. And this is where we teach children to question everything. We teach children to take a philosophical approach to learning, to discern information critically. So teachers need to be more facilitators of information rather than dictators of information. They need to, you know, not see authority as truth, but truth as authority. So what we've got now is we've got teachers who, they stand at the front of the classroom and they spew information, and the children are expected to just absorb that information and to be, you know, be sponges and consumers of knowledge and information. And instead we need to kind of allow children to activate their minds rather than have their minds in a state of passivity. So in terms of inquiry, I want to bring philosophy into education. I want to give children a chance to step back from the rat race they're running, the treadmill they're running. They've kind of got to take the blinders off, and see things from a different perspective, and see different points of view that they wouldn't ordinarily care to acknowledge or delve into. It's important for us to see different perceptions and different perspectives so that we can see the bigger picture. We need to allow children to see the bigger picture and contemplate some of the things like, existentialism and because what we've got is a problem, a societal problem where we're so stuck vision. We're so stuck in this narrow-mindedness that we forget the human plight. We forget where we're going as a species, and we need to, make sure that children, are taking stock of where we are as a species. You know what I mean, Phil?
Yes, I do. I mean, at the moment, the education system is basically perpetuates the mainstream narrative of life. And we know the mainstream narrative of life is essentially bullshit. It's got so many holes. It's causing so much ill health. The consumerist and individualistic and materialist ideologies rotting out our value systems and really causing so much pain and dysfunction and suffering on so many widespread levels for society. So we need a new narrative on life. And there's no doubt that it's not just about looking back over the philosophers who have talked about particular ideas or concepts, but philosophy is about the investigation of our beliefs, about what is truth, about having a process of understanding how you think, how you feel, and how you believe what's happening in the world around you. So absolutely. All right. What's the third part of the model?
Yeah, so the third dimension is sustainability. And again, this is so important, so crucial that we start taking sustainability education seriously, because so many people, and this seems to be quite a general problem in society, is that so many people are disengaged and disconnected with nature, and we're not feeling the crises that our planet is facing. We're not feeling the oil pollution, the air pollution. We're not feeling, I mean, obviously people who are in those regions that are experiencing extreme pollution, like China, they're feeling it, but across the world, we're disconnected from these issues, and these are issues that are, if we don't look at them, and we don't actually try and solve these problems, then they will hit home for everyone else, and it will be a planetary. It will come to all our doorsteps. So we really need to take our natural predicaments, our natural crises, way more seriously than we are. I mean, you look at Australia, and we're just cutting our sustainability budgets, and we're cutting our sustainability education programs in schools. And what's going on? Like, we need to be bringing more programs in sustainability. We need to be acknowledging, we're part of the earth, where, we need to re-establish our connection with nature, with the earth itself. I mean, we need to find our indigenous roots. We need to find our tribal connection to the earth. We've lost it completely. We're in these metropolises, and we've forgotten what it means to be part of the earth. And I think we need to regain that, Phil. So that's what sustainability's focuses on, and we need to bring in health education in a big way. We need to show children how to eat well, without forcing them, but just giving them the information and showing them, how to look after themselves and how to be, how to do the best for their health and well-being, so that they can make good decisions and make healthy decisions. And we need to also bring self-sustainability into education. And this comes under the sustainability pillar as well. As self-sustainability is basically about ensuring children are able to be independent from any system that we structure around society, that they're able to produce the energy they need to, or harvest their own crops, or they're able to grow their own food, or they're able to collect their own rainwater, or they're able to basically have all the life skills they need to be completely self-sufficient, self-sustainable. We've got children who are growing up, and I'm guilty of this too. If things got bad and we were in a situation where our system suddenly collapsed, I wouldn't know what to do. I wouldn't know where to start, because I never learned those life skills. I never learned how to survive and be independent from any system. So, we want to empower children. We want to give them the opportunity to really be responsible for themselves and be self-governing, basically. Yeah.
Yes, well, we know if we got lost out in the wilderness, or the global economic issues that we're facing at the moment did have an impact on how we were at the system itself, then the strong majority would have no idea how to deal with that whatsoever. We're completely 100% reliant on how we get food and water and whatnot. But I mean, really, there's something beautiful about being able to walk out in the bush and know what you can eat and what you can't. I think that's a really good thing to introduce to our children, in terms of not just about understanding what nature is and the different elements of it, and what medicines we can take from it, what natural medicines, not pharmaceutical medicines, but what natural medicines are all around us, as well as just food itself. And when you were talking about that, it made me think about how in Australia, our Indigenous culture, the Australian Aborigines, are very still much isolated from the modernity, or the collective consciousness of those who colonised Australia. There's a big separation, big gaps all over the place, and there's a philosophical, distinction or misunderstanding around these two different cultures, and that would be a really good mechanism to help each other understand each other's philosophies, because I think there's so much beauty, so much wisdom that we can take away from tribal philosophy that really should be reintegrated within our a collective consciousness. And the only way we're going to do that is through our kids. The other thing you mentioned was sustainability. In terms of where we're heading as a species, that is our future, isn't it? We have to be able to learn how to use our resources sustainably. So instead of building houses out of energy-intensive, oil-dependent sort of materials, there are plenty of natural materials all around us that we could use in a very, very sustainable way to build a house, to even just the growing of food. I mean, we're really reliant on that system to go on, to get our food at the multinational supermarket chains, when we could be just growing it ourselves. So introducing gardening into schools sounds like a highly intelligent decision to make. People need to, there's so much epidemics of ill health in our society. Diet and nutrition can help alleviate so much of that. And if we learn how to grow our own food, raw, organic, oil-free type foods, toxin-free foods, then it's going to alleviate all those issues, make us healthier, sort of help overcome not just obesity and diabetes and all these other sort of physiological things, but also mental health ones, such as anxiety, stress, the process of connecting to nature. is actually good for our well-being. So there's a whole sustainability dimension. Like, it feels like it's completely missed in our education system. I would love to see that introduced or reintroduced, really. All right, what's the fourth dimension, Will?
Yeah, so the fourth dimension is innovation. So this is kind of about how creativity informs human progress, and how science and technology needs to expand from these materialist, reductionist paradigms, and you know, really open up to a whole new world of what's out there that goes beyond the material, that goes beyond. I mean, Nikola Tesla, I think he said that once we learn to take our research beyond the material, then, you know, human progress we will progress tenfold more than in previous centuries. So, you know, we need to acknowledge quantum physics, and there's so much research in these areas that they're not teaching children. I mean, I never learned about quantum mechanics when I was in school, and even the basics you can teach young children. You can show them new energy devices that are you know, groundbreaking, and they need to be exploring these avenues, and they're kind of boxed in this very regimented, scientific, stubborn structure that's sort of encompassed science education for a long time. And so we need to just open up science education to a whole new set of possibilities, and not to be like, you know, that not to see certain things as taboo, but if they have merit, to explore them, and to actually look at all the evidence that supports new research. So yeah, it's just about getting rid of the box and just seeing that there is no box, and that we need to stop being so arrogant as science-minded people, and to explore new horizons in science education.
You're speaking my language now, Will, because this is an integral part of this project. When we've talked about in previous episodes with Rupert Sheldrake and Dean Radin around the dogma that plagues modern day science. Now, science is meant to be this rational, objective, unadulterated snapshot of reality, but it's not. And a lot of people who have indoctrinated themselves into the faith called materialism, or reductionist materialism, or mechanistic materialism, whatever philosophy you want to call it, that matter is the fundamental stuff of the universe. It's not true. It's unproven, and there is lots of evidence coming through quantum physics, parapsychology, and also psychology itself that matter is not the fundamental stuff of the universe. So we're going through a meta paradigm shift. The education system needs to capture this. They need to understand that science has been hijacked by materialist priests, and are being very biased and dogmatic and unscientific in how they're dealing with the data, the evidence that's coming out of through all those particular disciplines that I spoke about. So once the education system absolutely starts, I guess, exploring this meta paradigm shift that we're going through, one from a matter-based understanding of reality to a mind-based understanding of reality, which is essentially going from materialism to idealism. There's many different ways you can look at that, but essentially consciousness plays a fundamental and co-creating role in our reality. Now, that's where we're heading. If you're still stuck back in the 19th, 20th and 19th century in this materialistic view of the universe, then you've been basically brainwashed by the dogma of this materialism that is stubbornly holding on to its dear life. But see you later, it's gone. We need to catch up, not just as a society, but through education models as well. All right, excellent. What's the next part?
Yeah, so the fifth dimension is communication. So this is about language, at its most fundamental. So language in terms of literacy, language in terms of media literacy. So media literacy is something we really don't give enough attention to in education. I think that we need to allow children, or give children the skills and equip them with the ability to really look at the political system and look at media and discern the mixed messages that we're getting from these institutions, and you know, to learn how to understand the language of media, and to see subtext, to really read deeper into how we're being informed and even manipulated in certain ways by you know, mainstream media, even independent media, manipulated by political speeches that are trying to you know, manufacture public consent for war. And we need to sort of see through the veil of media, and so, you know, what we need to do is give children the skills to really see what you know, what is really being said behind the superficiality of media. The other thing in communication, Phil, is how we communicate with each other, how we, you know, how our relationships develop, and how we best minimize conflict internally and externally, and it's about how we can communicate effectively with each other as human beings on the most basic fundamental level. So, you know, you teach children about emotional intelligence, you teach children about how to recognize their own emotions and be conscious of their own emotions, and to stop themselves from reaching extremes of emotion, and to stop them from reacting in the worst ways that are going to escalate conflict. So yeah, in terms of communication, it's about being effective in social situations, and yeah, we need to give children real social skills, and you know, incorporate much more of a social aspect in education than we have been previously. It's kind of been a little bit taboo going into emotions, and people are, oh, I don't want to study emotions and all that stuff. But if we don't, then we'll never learn how to cohabit, we'll never learn how to live together on this planet in a harmonious way rather than a conflicting way. You know, we've got all these wars that are happening, and this is going to lead into the next dimension when I talk about it. But you know, we so easily fight each other, and we so easily protect ourselves at the expense of others. And so, you know, we need to give children the skills to communicate effectively with each other, and to live in alignment with one another as human beings.
There's a couple of points that I'd like to speak to on that, actually. You've raised a really, really important one. Corporate media, the elite who own our media, use propaganda to achieve agenda. Now, everybody in society should know this by now. The whole mainstream narrative that we get through the mainstream media is designed for specific purposes. It's not the truth. It's nowhere near the truth. There's truth woven through it a little bit, which is why it can be so convincing. But at the end of the day, mainstream media is a lie. You need to be able to discern between, you know, what's real and what's not through that information. The other thing was around communication with each other. I mean, the lies that people tell, even just the little ones, like just the little white lies that people say to make themselves feel better, to make their ego a little bit more stronger. You know, it's full of bullshit. Most communication is full of bullshit. Like, honestly, like I worked in this area long enough to know that people are lying a lot of the time. And just knowing myself and how I evolved through life and understanding the lies that I told. I've just got to be real with myself about the lies that I even told myself. But the really difficult part about telling if somebody's lying or not is when they believe their own bullshit. If you believe the lies that you're telling you, if that's a story that you've told yourself and that you're 100% are convicted by, then the energetic expression, the electromagnetic, the body language, all that sort of stuff is saying that it's telling the truth. So it's really hard to work out if they're saying the truth or not, because the body language is saying, I believe this, so therefore it's true. But the actual information is non-factual. But if we can start teaching each other, teaching our kids, teaching each other, teaching ourselves how to be honest and real and genuine in life, I think that authenticity would permeate across so many different sorts of areas in life and make it a happier, healthier place to live. So absolutely spot on. This model seems so bloody real and straight to the point, Will. It's excellent to hear somebody has put this all together in one framework that really does call out the current system. Not, there's lots of positive, but there's stuff that we really need to take seriously and change. So, okay, so that's 4 or 5 dimensions now. Where are we at?
We've done 5 now, so we're up to the final dimension.
All right, it's all yours.
Yeah, so the final of the 6 dimensions is empathy. And empathy is so important. Like, we need to transcend this paradigm of fear and move into a paradigm of love and unity and connection, real human connection. We've lost this. I mean, we've got all these invasions of other countries and nationalism and patriotic behavior, and I mean, those things may have served us in certain ways for a time, but we're ready to move on from that. It's a petty paradigm that we need to transcend, and what we need to do is move away from nationalist philosophies and nationalist ideologies and ethnocentrism, and move into a planetary philosophy, or even a universal philosophy. Stop seeing us as disconnected and separate in so many ways, and only seeing our differences rather than, even if we all have differences, we need to embrace our differences, not tolerate them, but embrace them. I mean, that's part of the beauty of diversity, is we need to have unity through diversity. And I think, what we're getting now is conformity and separation and division, and everything is fear of the other, fear of something that's not like you, fear of something that doesn't represent your belief systems and your ideologies. And I mean, everyone's different. Everyone's got a different belief system. Everyone's got a different perspective and perception on life and on the earth and on who they are and what this all is. And yet everyone fears what everyone else thinks and what everyone else feels. And if we show children what it is to connect with one another on a human level, what it is to love one another, what it is to really be as one, if we're going to go by the Eastern philosophy of we are all one, at heart. And, this is something that even quantum physics is starting to prove, with evidence that we are literally all one, that we are connected on such a fundamental atomic level. We go into deep down into the quantum field, into the ocean of consciousness that permeates everything, that permeates you and me and everyone around us and all the objects in our existence, that we're all fundamentally linked together, that we are all part of the same essence, we're all part of the same stuff. So once we actually realize this, both on a scientific level and on a philosophical level and on a feeling level, through meditation, once you meditate, you engage with this sense of oneness. You engage with the sense that you are everything, that everything is you, that you are the universe, as Alan Watts says, and the universe is you. I mean, this is something that once you feel, it really just changes the way that you view everyone around you. And it shows you that through unity, we can have such an amazing abundance of love and positive energy. And you know, this is just something we're all moving towards collectively anyway, through a consciousness shift on this planet, through paradigm shifts in the institutions that we're currently combating at the moment and working through. And you know, imagine how much of a difference it will make with the future generations if we can show them how to unite and be as one, and to embrace diversity and embrace our differences, and through empathy, through stepping into one another's shoes, and through feeling one another's pain, and through understanding one another, and from teachers understanding the students and getting down onto their level, and really getting to know the children, you know, much more than than teachers have been allowed in this kind of regimented, overly structured, boxed in system that's, you know, it's restricted teachers in so many ways. If we can give the teachers the freedom that they need to engage with the children and connect with them on a human level, just imagine how beautiful this world can be. And that's what I want to bring to it through, you know, and there's lots of ways that we can teach children empathy. You know, we can show them what it means to give to other people. We can encourage them to engage in deeds of human kindness and compassion with one another. And, you know, if we can encourage them to not step past homeless people in the street, but give them a helping hand, and actually reach out to them and get to know them, and ask them their story and ask them their name, and embrace them in a hug, you know, just anything that can establish a human connection. If these children feel these things, it's just going to transform society in such an amazing way, Phil. So empathy is just so fundamentally important to education, and it's been neglected for so many years. And if we bring that in, it will empower children in so many ways and empower our society in so many ways.
Really, really well said. Absolutely agree on every point you made there. If we can look at, you know, each other and understand each other, you know, the other people as a part of who we are, then we're not going to treat them like crap, are we? Because we know that we are that. And so therefore, if we're going to look after ourselves, respect ourselves, we need to respect others because others are ourselves. So huge shift, philosophical, all the paradigm shift that you've got to have in your mind around that. But as you said, once you understand it rationally, i.e. science, understand it intuitively, i.e. feeling, and then understand it philosophically, which is sort of like combines those two frameworks, it really, really will have that impact that you're suggesting. All right, now we were speaking prior to this interview, and you talked about how teachers are the best asset of the education system because they really are passionate about, you know, helping children. That's why they're in their job. In general, they really love their job and really want to provide the best possible platform for children to grow up in, but they are restricted by this current education system. So what do we need to do around helping teachers become, you know, more free to do what they're there to do, which is to really help these kids?
I think that in terms of the structure of education, we need to stop limiting our possibilities into where learning goes. We need to give teachers so much more freedom in where they can take learning, and even like not to have these really boxed in lesson plans and you know, you must achieve this learning outcome, you must achieve that learning outcome. That, you know, it's really about giving teachers so much more flexibility in where they go with what they're teaching, and giving children even a chance to have an input and to actually, you know, express where they want to go in terms of their own learning. So it's about, you know, giving and taking and allowing more flexibility and more freedom for both the teachers and the students. And you do that through not limiting the structure, really opening up the structure. You know, you do need a certain level of structure, of course. We need a curriculum, and we need this, and we need that. And we need, you know, some kind of an organized framework. But beyond that, we need to allow so much more exploration in where our avenues of learning go. So I think, yeah, we just need to stop restricting the structure of education so much. And I think that that's how we'll free up teachers to engage with the students more on a personal level, on a spiritual level, and get to know who that children is in their core, the core of their being. Get to know, you know, actually forge a human connection with the students themselves, and basically, yeah, it's about getting the teachers to unearth those children's abilities, those passions, and nurturing those qualities in them, as I was saying when I was talking about the self-discovery dimension.
There's a huge problem with funding, really, isn't there? I mean, having one teacher per 30 students doesn't really seem like, you know, appropriate. It doesn't seem like the kids are going to get the attention they really need, because I mean, if you've got a bunch of 30 kids in the classroom and telling them to sit still, don't move, listen to this really boring information, don't think about it, just consume it. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to have all these reactions, a physical reaction, an emotional reaction, that behavioral reaction. It's part of their spirit to want to run around and learn and be creative and do stuff. And so a huge problem, obviously, with the way that our education model is at the moment, is that if they can't sit still, give them some drugs. They've got ADHD. You know, like we're little hunters and gatherers. It's what we are as kids. We've got all these energies in us, and if we're more of a hunter than a gatherer, then we want to go out and get our kill. You know, we want to actually move around and be to build and to fulfill that sort of that physical drive that we've got within us. But if we can't do that in the framework that we've been given, then we're going to fight it. And that is essentially, so ADHD is a behaviorally based diagnosis. Might be some chemical imbalances in extreme cases, but in general, it's just a behavior that is reacting almost spiritually to what they've been forced into doing. So in terms of how you see your model being implemented in a sort of a school setting, how would you deal with that aspect of it?
So I think in terms of things like ADHD, and we see this happening in America, but not in somewhere like France. So, you know, why is that? It's not a planetary problem. It doesn't seem like it's a planetary problem. So maybe it's a misdiagnosis. Maybe these children, I mean, look, yes, there is such a thing as attention deficit hyperactive disorder. But I think that it's overdiagnosed to the extent where we just think that any children who are starting to fidget and starting to disengage from their learning are, you know, dysfunctional, need to be medicated, need to be anesthetized. So I think that the reason why children are starting to, you know, to act like this and starting to disengage from learning is because it's not connecting with them. It's not connecting with who they are. I think our children are growing up, they're a lot smarter than we give them credit for, and they know, they see through the bullshit. They see through it all. They know that there's so much more to be gained from their education that they're not being given. And I think that that's why they're just, you know, we have behavioral problems, and why why they act out. And what, I've seen my own experience when I was in Kathmandu and I taught in a government school there, one of the worst government schools, probably in that city. They were still hitting the kids. The sanitation was horrible. There was, they're just teaching straight out of the government textbooks. It's all rote. It was an eye-opening experience for me. But one of the things I noticed was that the two kids who were behaving the worst, who were acting out the worst, were extraordinary artists. They were just meant to create. They were meant to inspire with their art, but they weren't being given those opportunities. And when I was able to give them an opportunity to express themselves creatively, it was like all of a sudden they were just blowing all the other drawings in the classroom out of the water. And it hit me that, the reason these kids were misbehaving and were just acting out and going against the teachers and disobeying them was because they knew that wasn't what they were meant to be doing, that they were meant to be given opportunities to explore who they are and what they're feeling inside. So I think that in terms of the greater problem of medicating children is that we're treating the wrong problem. We're seeing the problem as the children themselves. We're seeing the problem as individuals who are disengaged and need to be punished or need to be medicated. But it's not that at all, in my opinion. It's a systemic problem. We need to change the system. These kids are growing up. They see through it. They want something better. So we need to give it to them.
Let's move on to something I touched on a little bit earlier around funding issues. So what do you think that is the biggest barrier there is, or what do you think are the biggest barriers to the education system not just progressing but being transformed?
Yeah, well, I think you've really hit it on the head there, Phil. Funding is hugely important. The reality is governments are not funding education. They're cutting funding for education. We're going backwards. So, what's going on? They're funding wars. They're funding invasions of the Middle East. They're funding defense spending. They're funding all the things that are furthering their own political interests, but they're not funding anything that's furthering a human interest. They're not funding human progress. They have no interest in human progress because it's not profitable. So the best schools around the world that are really evolving the way education needs to go and are really leading the way in terms of where alternative education has to go, these schools can't be implemented on a global scale because they require so much funding. There's so many resources that need to be paid for. There's so much, teachers. You need good quality teachers, and they need to be paid better. And there's all this. The biggest problem I see is that we're so limited by our monetary system. In that. If we don't remove this barrier of funding, then we'll never have the best education system in the world. We'll never have the best alternative education programs around the world. We'll never have a system that wants human progress and a system that can allow children all of the avenues of discovery they want to explore and allow, schools to have the best resources and the best, to be at the forefront of innovation and technology. So unless we remove this barrier of funding, we can't get anywhere with education. So in my view, what we need to do is we need to start thinking about alternative systems that don't require money. We need to start really changing the way we think about our societal structures and moving on from a paradigm that uses money or needs money as a tool of exchange. We know there are such things as resource-based economies that cut out the middleman of the monetary system. That we've got ways to automate all of the mundane soul-destroying work there is out there, and free up humans to pursue their dreams, pursue, you know, the mysteries of the earth, pursue what it is that they're driven to pursue. So I think that if we move towards things like resource-based economies and you know, things like Michael Tellinger's Ubuntu contributionism movement, you know, and these are things that are based on a world without money. Because I think that unless we can remove money from the equation, then we're always going to have an education system that tries to produce workers for the economy, because the economy is all about money. Everything's always about production and profit. So, you know, I can't see education changing in the most fundamental sense, in the most paradigm shifting sense, unless we have a paradigm shift in the way that we see our societal structures, and the way that we see our social systems, and the way that we see our monetary system, and that we don't need our monetary system anymore, as it's limiting human progress.
That is most certainly the ideal, and it's a topic that we're going to discuss later on in this series about contributionism, or the resource-based economy, how that we can provide all the basic needs for humanity for free, not see as basic needs as a luxury or a privilege, but as a necessity that we can all do. We can provide an abundance for society quite easily, because there's enough resources to do so. Now, that is a huge shift, though. That is a huge, I guess, the achievement of the ideal. But I can see, I guess, slower sort of transformations or baby steps leading up to that over the coming decades. To do a huge flip like that, it just seems almost impossible. Not to say it is, but, you know, I feel like, I mean, anybody who disengages from this mainstream narrative that we talked about earlier understands that the central banking system and the way that the whole monetary policy operates also understands that it is designed to keep the wealth and the resources in the hands of, you know, the 1%. Essentially, governments, independent sovereign nations can create their own publicly operated central banks, manage their currency themselves, and distribute what they create according to where society's needs are. Now, we also know on a global scale now, big money, i.e. multinational corporations, i.e. the elite, they control political decisions because they privately fund political campaigns, and therefore those politicians are subject or have an obligation to fulfill particular agendas, policy agendas that money are invested in. So essentially, money owns political decisions now. Politicians work for big business, not for the people. Now, that's a real bloody issue for us on the ground, the normal, humanity who want to start affecting these sorts of changes that we so desperately need in our world, not just education, but also, health and medicine and community and just general happiness. I mean, transcending these consumerist, materialist, I guess, paradigms of growth. We need to continue to grow to fuel the economy. Well, that's unsustainable. Going back to your sustainability dimension, it is impossible for us to continue to grow our economy. So we really need to look at how we can design what we've got at the moment, which is literally the power to manage your own money and distribute independent of any huge, big business, multinational corporation and their needs. We need to look after local business. We need to support local or regionally grown food. We need to grow our own food. We need to look at many aspects to our society as well, to help transform it into where we are going, not just in terms of the philosophical shift that we're going through, but also the behavioral one as well, because people aren't that happy. People are not that content. There's a huge lack of inner peace in our society, and it's sad. It really is. It's sad to see so many people who are discontent when we've got everything that we need right now. to help people to become the highest potential of themselves. So in the meantime, though, these are huge changes that we need to do. How does your model, how can it run parallel to the current system? Is there some way that a school might be able to incorporate your model into the current system as it is at the moment? It might not, it might conflict in certain ways, but it can also, I guess, be integrated in a way to get some of the benefits out of it.
Yeah, absolutely, Phil. I think that there are aspects of this model, key aspects of this model, that can be implemented in the current system. Like, for one, meditation. I mean, we're seeing it already. I mean, there's schools all around the world popping up that are starting to move into mindfulness, mindfulness classes and mindfulness practice in schools. And I saw an article recently about a footballer in Melbourne who his name's Luke Ball, and he's been advocating to bring meditation into schools in Melbourne, and I think that's beautiful to see. That's exactly what I want to see. Exactly what I want to try and advocate is bringing meditation into schools on a global scale. So and we can obviously we can transition to more of a creative freedom, in classrooms, because that's not going to hurt our society in any way. That's not going to hurt our systems in any way. All it's going to do is help us evolve to a better system. It's going to help us reach at the pinnacle of our innovation. So, we can really allow children more freedom with creativity, allow teachers more freedom nurturing a child's creativity. So, these are things we can implement in the current system. What else? I mean, we can obviously integrate a core philosophy into all the schools around the world that sees us all as one, that sees us all as connected human beings, as part of the same stuff, rather than I'm different to that guy over there and I'm scared of him because of those differences. So these things, a lot of these aspects of the model that we can bring in, and we can start to transition the current system in many ways. That all said, I do think, based on Buckminster Fuller's philosophy, that you never change things by fighting the existing reality. You change things by building a new model that makes the old model obsolete. And I really do believe this. You create something new, and people will gravitate towards it if it resonates with them. So I really do believe that this whole new model will be something new. Like, we're wiping the slate clean and we're starting fresh. We're given a second chance to go again with education. We're given a second chance to get it right, to get it right in the best possible way, in the way that works for everyone. So I really do think that if we create new schools all around the world, and when this happens, it will all start to come together in a collective sense, and all of these schools will begin to form the new sense of public education. They'll begin to form the new norm, the new mainstream education. I really do believe that if everyone gets on board this shift, it's a whole movement I'm trying to start, a whole movement where we just create all these new, all of these new schools around the world that work on this framework. I mean, this is just a framework. This is just a guiding structure, a guiding model. It's not like you have to be stuck in this model, the 6-dimension model. It's like, I'm just giving this to the world to, you play with it, you work with it, you make it work for you. I don't want to say that you have to use this model and it has to be strictly in this way or that way. I'm just giving it to the world to, use it, run with it, work with it, change it. I think that if we build from this basic framework, then we can really create a collective shift in where education moves. So I think, to answer your question in a nutshell, Phil, we need change in the system and we need change outside of the system. My energy is going to be going towards primarily change in creating the new, in creating something, you know, to work on this new paradigm. I want to see other people inside the system working to change the mechanics of how our current system works. And I want to implement changes within the current system too, but most of my energy is going to be working towards creating the new.
All right. So if a teacher watches this interview and they want to read your book and start thinking about how they can start teaching in a different, fundamentally different way, how can they get in contact with you? How can they buy your book? What's all your details there?
Yeah, so the book, it's called Education Revolution. You can get it on the book depository. It's on ebook on all the major devices, on Kindle. So it's out there on all of the online shops, and I'm trying to do as much grassroots promoting of the model itself, and I'm trying to get out there and get my own sort of public speaking roles and to really get my voice out there, because I want to get the message out there. I want to get the model out there to the world. I want people to have this and run with it. So if you want to get in touch with me, I have an email that you can contact me on. So it's the 6th dimension model, which is SIX, not the number 6, @gmail.com. So you can send anything you want to run by me, any ideas you've got, any collaborations that you want to set up, anything you want to ask, whatever you want. I'm an open door. So feel free to contact me. There's also a group that would be great if you could join on Facebook. I'm starting to shift things more towards this movement, and I don't want things to be about me. I want things to be about this movement. I want things to be about the mission that is for the collective. So I've created a group called Education Revolution, because that's what I'm trying to start, is a whole revolution in this field. And so you can join this group. It's facebook.com/join the education revolution. So be a part of this. It's a whole movement I'm trying to start. I really think it will empower. I'm trying to inform people of what's going on in terms of educational change around the world, and I'm trying to leave articles and leave inspiring inspiring quotes and whatever will help people really get on board this shift. So yeah, be a part of this. It'd be great.
All right. Well, this has been a very inspiring conversation, Will. Anybody who is interested in education, teachers, or whatnot, I think would really benefit out of listening to what you've had to talk about today. And not just that, but everybody in general. When we start looking at education through these eyes, instead of geography and maths and English, and turn it into empathy and health and love and that sustainability and earthly stuff and philosophical stuff, that will help people undertake the shift that they need to go through to work out how our education model needs to shift as well. So is there anything else that you want to add?
Yeah, I suppose if I'm going to leave you on something, I'd say, if you're a parent, teach your children to question everything. Teach your children to think critically. Let them find the information themselves. Show them where to look, but don't show them what to see. And also, don't be afraid to allow your children to follow their own path and to follow their own heart and to go with what is intuitive to that child. Really help them in that way, because they will thank you for it later. They really will. What I want to do, what I want to create, and this whole shift is all about empowerment. I want to stop holding our children back, and I think that as a society we need to stop holding the future generations back, and all of the young people back, and restricting them and limiting them, and to really show them that they are powerful people and that they can achieve so much in their lives, and that they are amazing human beings that are capable of such raw potential. There's so much that we're born with as human beings, and all we need to do is just give our children the right ingredients, the sunlight and the water they need to grow into the best possible, empowered people, empowered human beings that they can be. So, I really want this message to be all about empowerment, and I'll leave you on that.
I absolutely love that analogy. Well said. Well, it's a pleasure. Thank you for joining us, Will, and until next time.
Thanks, Phil. Been great.